next week, and we'll have extensive notes that'll go out on Friday, and they should be up on the web next week. We're going to talk about 3 different things today. One is what's going to happen at some highlights at Brownfields, because that's coming up in about a week. Then we're going to be talking about some things that HMTRI is doing and the all grantee meeting that will be coming up. Then we're going to switch over to this grant cycle for those of you who are just completing or are in a crunch now or may have submitted and taking a deep breath. We're going to talk a little bit about the timeline for this grant cycle. And then we're going to talk a little bit about post-grant cleanup for those of you who did submit, and just in general about after you submit what you may have to do to keep your files current and keep everyone informed. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time. Anyone has some questions about submitting the grant or about Brownfields. And as I said, everything will be in post-session notes. With that, let's just go around the horn real quick and introduce ourselves. Steve, do you want to?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Fenton with HMTRI. It's good to see everybody.
Okay, and I'm Mike Senu, a facilitator today.
And I'm Nolan Curtis, also with HMTRI.
Hey, Christine.
So I'll start. I'm Christine Blanche, coordinator of career services at the South Bronx Overall Economic Development Corp, also known as SOBRO, as per my background here. We are actually 2021 co-grantees with the City University of New York. So we applied for the grant together. So they provide kind of the EPA regulated trainings, HAZWAPER, OSHA 30, site safety, ASTM, soil, water, and vapor sampling, and we do the post in classroom training piece. We do CDL training and accompaniment to that, and we do the job placement. So we do the connections with the job placement partners and our collaborative and coalition partners through the Workforce Ones and the small business development services to connect these folks post training with employment with small business vendors in the city.
It's a good combination. You're the rubber meets the road of working with the community, and they could provide some of the technical assistance. Great combination.
So we also provide wraparound services, case management, just those supplemental services, referrals to mental health and things like that, to make sure folks can retain, train, and be placed successfully.
Great. Diana?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Diana Napier with The Workplace. We are here in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and the weather is nice today.
Oh, good for you. I'm jealous. It's a little cooler. Jake, you're up in Northeast.
Mike, Jake Markowski from the Auberly Employment Institute, Region 3, 3-time grantee, and fingers crossed, hoping to be a 4th.
Congratulations. Have you submitted yet?
No, we're waiting on, I think, a couple more letters we want to hold out for.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about that later. This is crunch time. Don't wait too long. Gustav.
Good afternoon. My name is Gustavo. I am the Director of Youth Field and Workforce Training for the South Bronx Economic Development Corporation, as Christine said earlier. But I just want to go back for a second. As a true North Carolinian born and raised, we have not experienced anything what you guys are experiencing down south. So let me just put that out there. I love you, Chris, but it's not true. They have it completely worse than we do up here.
Yeah, we have it pretty humid down here.
Yeah, but my
hilarious.
But responsibilities, as Christine said, with industrial manufacturing, food safety, workforce training for the center.
Well, you know, I grew up in Chicago, so I'm a carpetbagger down here. But I've been here since 1987, so I just assume. They say, I don't know about the Mexican wall, but I'd like to build a wall on the Virginia line to keep all you Yankees out of here, because we feel we're in a good place right now.
Listen, as a born and bred North Carolinian, I see it now. Yeah. I see it. I can't say I saw it before, but I actually see it now.
Yeah. Harris, how are you?
Good. Harris Trubman. I'm a green infrastructure project specialist at University of District of Columbia. We're hoping to apply for the grant with District Department of Energy and Environment this year.
Fantastic. good year for it. Michael. Michael
Yeah,
Long.
this is, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Let's go.
I defer.
Oh,
Sure.
sorry, this is Michael Premstraat from Los Angeles Conservation Corps. Hello, everybody.
Okay. And let's do the other Michael.
Greetings, everyone. Michael Long, the Senior Coordinator with Compliance and Planning here in Kansas City, Missouri with the Full Employment Council.
Great, great. And Harris?
Oh, you just did me, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Laura.
I think she's only has chat available, Mike.
Okay, well, there's Laura. We're happy to have her here today. We'll see her at another time. Larissa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Larissa Adwaru. I'm an analyst for Green Jobs and Workforce Development in Washington, D.C. for the Department of Energy and Environment. And as mentioned previously, we are pursuing the Brownfields Job Training Grant and working very closely with my colleagues on this call, Brian Barone from DOEE and Harris Trobman from UDC.
Great, great. Deborah.
Hi, Michael. Deborah Tavaro from the city of Tacoma, multiple time grantee, the city, and we have not submitted yet. So I'm waiting to hear what you say.
Well, I'll tell you, Tacoma is one of my favorites. You've had a grant for a long time, and then you took a break, and we're hoping you come back to us. They had a great program for many years. Brian.
Brian is having audio problems.
How about Latrice?
Good afternoon. I'm Latrice Atkins from Dallas, Texas. I'm actually a professional grant writer. Just the other day, I submitted a grant to the Connecticut Investment Fund, and Bridgeport was a part of that. So I'm super excited to put a face to a name. I'm a native Dallasite, and I have won federal grants before, but this animal is completely new and don't know how it's going to go, but I'm here.
I've been texting back and forth with you today. I hope it's going well. Good luck. It's a big undertaking, as you're discovering. Rita, welcome.
Hi, it's Rita, and I'm so happy to see Latrice here. I could detect what do I do with this in her email. So I invited her to this, and I am so happy she's here.
Thank you.
We've been going back and forth, and we're going to talk about that after we go through these other things. At the end of this call, anyone who wants to hang around, we'll be talking about those issues. And those of you who are in a crunch and have a few days left and say, what am I going to do? Just hang on. We're going to be having an open discussion about that. Who did I miss? Anyone? Okay, well, welcome everybody. Well, this takes a little time, but I like to put faces to names so that when we see each other, eventually we'll know who we're talking to. As I said, we're going to talk about brownfields first, what's going on, some of our events. This is going to be, actually, these are cycles of 10. We're in number 3 in this cycle, but we're going to take a summer break because of brownfields coming up next month. And the grants are due. So our next PLC won't be till the end of August, and we'll send plenty of announcements around. And they're every 2 weeks. msenu@gmail.com. If you're not getting post-session notes, everything we talk about is in post-session notes and a little bit more. And we will be continuing again in the end of August, and we'll be rolling through an all grantee meeting in October, all the way up to before Christmas, December, every 2 weeks, same time, same place. And we'll be talking to grantees, seeing what they're doing, what's working for them, what's not working for them. So we'll keep on rolling. For those of you who are new to job training, it's a good chance to find out what other people are doing. Well, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and I'll inform us on a little bit about brownfields and HMTRI and what's going on.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And again, greetings, everyone. top thing on the schedule is Brownfields 2022, and there are a few developments want to just pass along. First of all, if you're a new grantee and you haven't registered yet or anything, you should consult your EPA project officer for options about attending. I also got a notice this week about they were still accepting reservations at the block of hotel rooms. So I don't think it's going to last long. They didn't give a date when it was going to end. So you might want to, if you haven't made a hotel reservation and you're thinking about going, you might want to do that fairly soon. HMTRI is not holding a pre-conference event this year like we have once before, and therefore we're unable to reimburse expenses associated with this conference. That question came up at our last PLC, so just wanted to kind of underscore that so that everyone is aware of that. Also, the Environmental Justice Caucus will be meeting at the National Brownfields Conference on the first night, actually Monday night, August 15th, from 5 to 6:30. And that actually will precede the conference, which will begin the next morning. It's also open to anyone. So you don't have to be registered for the conference. Anybody can attend. And that's usually a well-attended event. Also, the opening plenary session is going to feature the new EPA Administrator, Michael Regan, and that will be at 4:30 on Tuesday, August 16th. So kind of keep that in mind. Also, the Oklahoma City streetcar is providing complimentary streetcar rides. If you have your badge, you can hop on and I guess tour the city. So keep that in mind. There's also going to be a community reception it's called the Jones Assembly on Thursday, August 18th. That's the last night of the conference from 5 to 7. They're going to have the mayor there along with live music, refreshments, and so on. So you might want to take a look at that. This is a building that used to house, it used to be an assembly building and a mannequin factory, if you can kind of visualize that. And now they've turned it into kind of a neat building. So the other thing is we've also noticed that the COVID level in Oklahoma has spiked up, and it's now, I believe, at a high level. And so that's just kind of an FYI to you. I'll put in the chat box here the link to the health and safety section of the Brownfield National Conference if you want more information on it. Please take a look at it. Also, the last thing in terms of the conference, on Wednesday, August 17th from 5 to 7, our good friends at NIEHS are going to be holding an ECWTP/Justice 40 stakeholder engagement meeting. That's an announcement we wanted to pass along. As of yet, we don't have a room number. We will try and pass that along in the notes if we're able to get it between now and then. So just a heads up, that's Wednesday, August 17th from 5 to 7. And the HMTRI news in terms of the first thing I'm going to mention is the grant recipient directory. We've been working on that, and the first kind of publication that's going to result from those efforts are the Certified Employee Finder, and this is basically a database that will provide contact information, curriculum, and certifications offered from each of the active Brownfield job training programs. We're going to have it available at Brownfields 2022. It's also going to be up on our Toolbox website here probably within a week or so. And it's really good information in terms of being able to help market the program. So we're kind of excited about that. And going forward, we're going to try and keep it up to date, kind of ongoing. Yes, changes, come to our attention. We're going to try and make corrections to the directory to keep it up to date. Also, another piece of news is the 2022 annual all grantee meeting planned for October 12th and 13th has been recast as a virtual workshop instead of face-to-face in Alexandria. And basically recent developments, including the proximity to Brownfields 2022 with the date, and grantee budget constraints and hotel accommodations kind of all have kind of come together to suggest that we postpone that in-person event until early in the second quarter 2023. Essentially, it'll happen right after the FY23 awards have been announced, and that seems to make more sense to us. So during the next 2 months, we're going to be reaching out to you and asking for suggestions for the agenda and content ideas. And also, if you're interested in doing a virtual tour of your facility and your program, we would welcome those. Those are always a highlight. Both grantees and EPA alike, and the HMTRI staff, we like to see what you're doing, and it's usually a highlight of any workshop that we do. So keep that in mind. And then also, when you get to Brownfields, if you're going, we would like to ask you to stop by our booth and just kind of check in with us so we know that you're there. We're also going to have a sign-up list if anybody would like to sign up to work the booth for an hour. We'll have that there, but more than anything, we want to make sure that we greet any and all of you that attend. So please check in with us. And if you have information about your program, please bring that, because we can lay that out on the table there and help market it for you. And then lastly, Mike's already alluded to this, but the PLC is going to be taking a summer break after today. The next PLC will be August 31st. So this will be the last time we have a get together between now and then. So want to wish all of you good luck that are submitting applications. So, okay, so at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Nolan, who's going to talk about the timeline for the FY23 job training cycle.
Thanks,
Nolan?
Steve, and hello to everyone. Again, the timeline for the grant cycle is the only actual data we have from EPA at this time is that the awards will be made in the first quarter of 23. So we don't have a firm date of when that is or how that process will unfold. But again, the actual awardees will be announced during Q1 of 2023. So a lot of things depend on those applicant announcements, and there are also processes that go between the time the selections are made and things that the successful bidders will have to do for EPA in order to make sure that the final monies get put into budgets and sent. So it is a 5-year, for the most part, grant cycle, and those first 4 years will focus on your program development, training, and delivery and placement. And that final 5th year has been added for additional training, placement, tracking, and your program sustainability. And below are some bullets on what the milestones might look like. I'm not going to read all the bullets to you because many of you I heard can read. So, but anyway, you know, we've kind of broken it up into the spring and summer of 22, fall, winter, spring, summer, and on to 23 and 28. But there's a few bullets that I do want to highlight. So in the fall, winter of 22, that first bullet, if your application did not pass the threshold criteria, you'll be notified within 15 days of the grant closure. So it's kind of a no news is good news, but keep your eyes open around August 22nd. If you get a notification that you didn't clear that first gate, there will be opportunities to understand why or what some of the perceived shortcomings might have been in your application. If you don't hear by then or around then you're still in the running. So, you know, keep your fingers crossed, burn incense, all those sage, all those things you do in order that it's going forward. but also keep in touch with your regional coordinators, as well as keep all of the people involved in your grant informed, of what the progress is. So all those people who are mentioned in the grants are all your potential teaming partners, those kinds of things. In the spring and summer of 2023, we are having, as Steve said, the in-person all grantee meeting in Alexandria, Virginia. So we'll have much more about that later. But be aware that you may not have funding if you're getting the grant in time to go to that meeting. So we'll deal with those issues later, but that's one of those little conundrums, because the funding availability will probably be released sometime around September, and that meeting is in April. So again, a little bit of a maybe hiccup there, but we'll deal with that in the future. It's a better problem to have if you're trying to get to the meeting because you've got a grant. And then finally on 23 to 28, the training and placement program with the ACRES system is very critical to your grants continued operation and success. Basically, all of our grants come from the Office of Brownfields and Land Restoration. And so they have a system called ACRES, with all of the different environmental grants from EPA are filed through. And so it's a very critical part of your process that you have those quarterly program statements and files up to date. So really, that's kind of it in terms of what we're looking at. You can see the bullets, and those will be in the notes, the PLC notes. And so, again, we're just wishing everyone well and all the best, and never give up, never surrender. So, make sure you have all your typists and handoff people in place, the delivery schedule for your UPS or FedEx drivers, and, so you can get your grant applications in on time. And with that, I'll hand it over to Mike.
Okay, thanks, Nolan. As you see, this is it's not an easy grant. You know as well as I, to prepare this grant for submission, you really have to have your program pretty well developed and laid out. And of course, there are long wait times. It tends to benefit people who already have grants, because they have their advisory committees in place, and they were continuing operations. But there's also some tremendous opportunities for new grantees, and to bring some new services to your community. So as we move towards the second, some of you are in crunch and some of you are beyond crunch. One of the things that, before we start off, I'd like to say, at this point in time, every once in a while, I'll get an email and say, Mike, I don't think we're going to submit this year, because we're up against too much. When we went through that RFA, I can't get this material together. There's some things missing. I said, no, submit, please submit. And there's some really good reasons for submitting. As far as we know, this is an annual grant competition. It's been an annual grant competition almost every year for the last 20 years. That we're under new rules and things. We'll see how it goes, but it's my understanding, unless Rita might have some other information, that there would be, and I'm anticipating there'll be another competition next year about the same time. And it takes about 6 months for those of you who have gotten into this from scratch to really get your partners going and you'll see on the time schedule in the notes that you really have to begin, the beginning of the year to start developing your partnerships if you're starting from scratch. So it does take a while, but for those of you who submit a grant in a week or so, and for some reason on the 22nd, or you get that dreaded letter from EPA that you are not moving on to the evaluation criteria, think of that as the beginning. It gives you an opportunity to sit down with your regional coordinator, get on the list of the people who are interested in submitting a grant, get reader notes of the evaluators. What were your weak spots? What are your strong points? Where can I go for some help? What can I do? How could HMTRI help me? How could other grantees help me? So I could develop a dynamite proposal next year. Or perhaps I can get some local money to do a pilot study or a demonstration project that I've developed some great relationships, and they're willing to give me some money to plan this out for next year, or to even start a small demonstration project on my own. So again, this isn't, don't look at this as your typical, I'm going to write a grant, I'm going to submit it. If I get it, great. If I don't, I'll go on to the next grant. It's not that kind of program. So that's where I wanted to start. Now I want to talk about what happens when we submit and after we submit. And as I said, it's very easy to submit the grant and then exhale, big exhale. I did it. I've killed myself for the last month. It's been really tough, and I want to just forget about it at this point. Well, it's okay to exhale and take a couple days off, but when you come back, there's some things that you really need to do that you're going to be happy you did them 6 months from now. You want to try to document everything. Things change between September and then end of August, when you know you're going on the threshold evaluation, and then February or March when you're accepted. People change, and staff changes more than you think. We've had more than one grantee where the authorized person has left, and they're no longer there. The project manager has left, or the administrator who submitted the grant has left. Then the question is, a new person is hired, and this has actually happened several times over the many years. They'd come into a new person and you'd say, I don't know anything about job training. I know nothing about this grant. And after you draw jobs, you say, okay, let's back up. Do you have the grant? And they're basically building from zero. So what I'm saying here is try to preserve your files, label them very well, make sure that if a responsible person, the person that submitted the grant, if he leaves, that he does debrief, and the person responsible, someone or yourself who is going to be there, has the information that they need to do to pick this up, and to move on when the grant is accepted. As I said, we don't think it's going to happen in our organization, but it happens more than you would think. So number one, preserve your data, protect your files, label them really well. If you've made contacts and had meetings, label, it's a good time to file away in your folders, meetings you've had, employer contacts that you've got, and all of these are going to change also in that 6 months. So who at ACE remediation company did you deal with? What is his phone number? Have that in a file. Who are your potential contacts? What are the partners that you worked so hard to get, and what did they promise, and who did you get those promises from at that organization? So when you have leverage partners, have a folder about your leverage partners. Who are you dealing with at that leverage partner? They may change as fast as your own organization. What did they promise? Did they write a commitment letter? Now, if they did, and it's in your grant proposal, and all of a sudden they're no longer there, or they've changed management, or the new person can't honor what he promised you, you're going to have to go back to your regional coordinator, and you're going to have to say, we've got some prime partners that what we put in our proposal as a leveraged service, they're not going to be with us anymore. So this is what we're doing to replace them. So again, what I'm trying to say is get your ducks and document who you're dealing with, and what they promise, and how you get in contact, if not with them, with someone else in that organization. Everything, again, as I'm pretty much the theme of what I'm saying is everything changes. And one of the other thing that changes is you may be have done a labor market assessment, and there is going to be a big development going on. It's going to be on the east side, and they're going to need all kinds of workers, and they may need some deconstruction workers, and you built your curriculum based on that labor market assessment. You get the grant. Okay, now you're filing your papers, you're getting your work plan set, and it's actually a year later from when you wrote your grant, and it's been a big delay. But then they say, well, that project fell through, or that project has actually been delayed because of funding for another year, and now you're stuck. And the question is do you find new people to place your graduates, people who promise to look at your graduates? That project may not be there, or may not be as viable, or they're not looking for as many people, or the skills and knowledges that they need are different than what you've proposed. You're going to have to do a mid-course correction. And everything I'm saying has actually happened. We've run into these situations at all grantee meetings and programs that have failed, that have said things changed in my community. Things are all different. And so you've got to keep an eye on this. So we're talking about labor market changes, partner changes, the economic development in the community, delayed projects. These have all things that are dynamic in the next year between now and when you're going to start training. So how do you go about mitigating these issues? And a lot of it has to do with keeping your partners engaged. When you submit a grant in a week or so, I would like to think that you're going to think positively and say, we're going to get this grant. And what do we need to do when we get this grant next first quarter? You're going to want to keep your partners engaged and informed. You're going to want to do, and when I talk about partners, I'm talking about certainly leverage partners, but people like the mayor's office, keep them informed of, we submitted the grant. Believe it or not, people like to be informed. You just don't submit the grant and forget about it. You're not pestering them by saying, we submitted the grant and we're really positive about this. We submitted the grant in September. We're going into the final evaluation of this grant. It's not a slam dunk with a lot of competition, but we're still in the running. We're keeping our partners together. We're keeping our advisory board together. Those of you who have grants already have your advisory boards on board. New grantees, we actually recommend that they develop their advisory board before they submit their grant, so they can include it in their grant or their advisory board. Even though you don't even have a program yet, it's okay to have an advisory board. And so you would keep that advisory board intact. Again, I'm going on the assumption I'm going to get the grant. You're going to keep them, and you might even have some quarterly meetings. Nowadays with Zoom, it's very easy. Every several months, get together the group. Thanks for helping us through this crunch. We're going to keep this group alive. We're anticipating an announcement in March. I'm going to let you know as soon as we get it, what's going to happen. And you're going to do that with your employers. You're going to do it with your advisory board. You're going to do it with your strategic partners and your leverage partners. And you're going to keep them all involved. Again, assuming you're going to get it. And you're going to ask me the question, okay, paranoid Mike, what if I don't get it? You don't get it, that's okay. You don't get it, you don't get it. But there's going to be another competition, and you're going to be set up for the next time. And you're going to have the benefit of being on board, working with EPA, working with your regional coordinators, working with HMTRI, going to these meetings. And many grantees don't make it the first time, new grantees, and they come back. Many grantees, as we've got some on the call, they run their grant for a while and they drop out for a while and then they come back. So think positively and keep your team together is what I'm trying to say. Through this whole process, keep your team together. If you have an opportunity to go to a public meeting, go to the public meeting and again, tell them, we're submitting a grant to the federal government. We're hoping to set up a job training program here. It's no sin if you don't get it. I mean, you could say we've got steep competition. Same with your contractors. this is a great time, actually. If you have not vetted your contractors yet, you could vet your contractors anytime. EPA regulations say you need at least 3 bids to have a competitive bid. If you're going to include it in your grant, you would have had them on board already. In other words, you could have brought them on board last month and then vetted and picked one and then included them as part of your grant. If they're not in your grant and you can't write them in as your training provider, this is not a bad time to go to search out training providers in your community and vet them. And again, you don't have to have the work to vet a contractor. In other words, you could tell them the courses you're planning on teaching, and they may change. And it's all dependent on, one, you getting the grant, depending on your training schedule. So you're not committing yourself to anything. You're getting bids and you're developing relationships with your trainers so that when and if the event occurs, when it's time and you actually get this grant, now you're saying, okay, how are we going to do this? You've got your team together, you've got your advisors together, you've got everybody's in place, and you start running so that before next September 31st, when these things have to be out in August, you're ready to start planning your first tranche of training because you've kept your team together. And I want to contrast that with the person that's going to throw all this stuff in a folder and go back to your next priority. So I'm just saying, I would recommend this is the way to go. Basically what I'm saying is keep everyone informed, pretend that you're going to get the grant. They have a lot of money this year. It's going to be a little different than in the past. It's going to be 5 years instead of 3 years. They're going to be making some new rules as they go along, I'm sure. But it's a great opportunity. Another word I would like to just pass on, in addition to the fact that if you get it or don't get it, if you're small, don't be a defeatist. Again, the word I hear often at this point in time is, oh, we're small. How do we compete against someone who's a 3-time grantee? EPA allows for that. So they give new grantees a certain amount of slack, and they understand if it's a very well-written proposal, you don't necessarily have to have an incredible track record. In other words, it's not perhaps those who get and those who are new can't break in. That is not the case on this particular grant. They make sure that they have new grantees. Sometimes it's harder for experienced grantees because the word that is sometimes said is, well, we want to spread the funding around. We want to give everyone a chance. So, and they also said never recycle an old proposal, because if they know you have, you're doomed. They want to see some new things. They want a fresh proposal. So this is not the type of grant program where you could resubmit and just get refunded, even though you've done good work. You've got to keep your program fresh. And if you're a new grantee and have never done this before, you've got to demonstrate that you're able to complete this project very well. So, but those are basically where we're at now. You all are going to be very busy for those who are still writing grants. Give yourself plenty of time to submit just in case something goes wrong. And hopefully we'll be seeing you all at Brownfields. Does anyone want to ask any questions about where they're at on the grant and how things are going? I know we were passing some text messages earlier today about finding trainers, and the 2 questions that we were talking about earlier is, one, courses, nailing down the courses I want to teach, and finding trainers to teach those courses. And of course, that's highly dependent on your labor market assessment. What at this point in time are your employers looking for in terms of credentials, skills, and knowledges? What are they looking for? And once you establish that, you've got to make sure that EPA will fund those courses. And then you have to find out, okay, who can I get to do this training? That's a little longer term process. Those of you who are experienced usually have your trainers on board and they're vetted. Steve, do you want to read this from Katie? We've designed our curriculum to match. Oops, I missed that one.
Steve,
Katie?
you're on mute. Yeah.
Katie? Oh,
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
We've designed our curriculum to match our other job training programs. They start training in September. Do you all have any advice for beginning training 6 months after the award?
well, I think they do. And that's an example of you've got everything in place and you're on the ground running. And we've had grantees are chomping at the bit to get that first cohort going. So I think sometimes it's more a question of when your employers are looking for graduates. So many will say, well, in our geographical location, hiring starts in the spring and they have to staff up. So we want to back off our training so that we're going to have graduates when our employers are looking for graduates. And so your approach is not bad, because if you start in the fall and they graduate, say at Christmas time, it depends on where you are in the United States, Southern or Northern, you will have opportunities to get your graduates placed when there may not be a lot of graduates available with the skills that you have. I think that's a great schedule if you can have everything in place. And of course, to do that, you've got your advisory committees in place, you've got your curriculum in place, so you're going to hit the ground running, which is great. It's great. Where I'd like to ask the question, just to open it up to everyone, is where do you find your trainers? Now, I know some of you have had them for years. Are they homegrown? Are you training in-house with in-house trainers? Are you using consultants? Any advice we can give? Yes.
Yeah. In our prior arrangement, we had a provider who pretty much did all the training. Of course, impact of COVID severely affected that. They're not even in business, so it's been short here in Connecticut. But we are doing some of the training in-house. We're doing the OSHA 30 and the OSHA 40 in-house. Forklift also.
Right. Yeah. Good suggestion. We often hear those who can do in-house, and of course a lot of them do life skills in-house. That's not a supported. It's not a supported curriculum, but they're doing all their life skills in-house, and whenever they have that opportunity, they do it in-house. There's a lot of advantages to that.
Yeah, and there's also some disadvantages in the sense that we're fortunate in the sense that we are a workforce development board and we can get some of those soft skills done through the American Job Center partnership. But when we had the provider, that provider did include the soft skills. And one of the things that we are missing from that actually is some of that employer contact that they have, that they come with.
Right.
But other than that, we are doing the training in-house.
Right.
Mike, in the chat box, we would be a new grantee, but we are planning to use consultants initially and as part of the long-term sustainability, training some of our in-house staff to offer these trainings. That came from Katie. And then Larissa added, how much flexibility do we have with changing the curriculum after the proposal submission, if anything changes? asking in the event we are awarded, but may need to modify the course offerings hypothetically, with the exception of the required training modules.
Well, personally, I think those people who change their curriculum because of labor market assessment are heroes. You don't want to, now you're going to have to go through your regional coordinator, but you could call Rita if you're in her region and say, you know, we've got a new employer in town and he'll look at all our graduates if they have this particular course, and we'd like to change our curriculum. Is that okay with you? Is it, Rita, do you concur with that?
Yeah, I concur. If you have some changes to be made and you've won the award already, just speak to your regional coordinator. I'm in Region 6, and you can give me a call if you're in any of the states in Region 6.
And that would go with any of them. And there we would put them in the notes every time, call them up and say, you know, things are changed. And I think they're very happy that you're responding to your labor market. And we've had many instances where a lot of this is serendipitous, where they'll go to a meeting and there'll be a deconstruction firm or something. And we'll look at everyone you got. We can't find people with 1910 120, or we need someone with asbestos badly, you know, or we need some lead remediators, and if you can give us lead remediators in July, we'll hire your whole class. So, you know, certainly don't feel that you're totally locked in.
Mike, we had a couple of comments from folks saying that they use the local community or technical college for training.
Yeah, that's a great place. If you find a school that has an environmental course or a remediation course, it may be a credit course or maybe even a non-credit course, and they will often have faculty who will be certified. Some of the courses, you have to be mindful that some of these courses require that the curriculum and or the trainer has to be certified. Another good source is, of course, OSHA. For your OSHA certified courses, OSHA puts out an elaborate directory of OSHA certified trainers in every state. And you can go to them for OSHA courses that require certification.
Nolan.
Yeah, I had a comment that kind of goes back to something that Mike had talked about, and I'm sort of the contrarian here, so bear with me. Mike was absolutely correct when he said don't recycle a proposal to EPA, you know, so if it worked once or didn't work once, don't just throw it back in the pile. On the other hand, I'm a big proponent of never write a proposal once. And that is often there's elements of your proposal or things you've done which may work well for other proposals or other grants. So as Mike said, don't throw this away, keep all your files, keep all your relationships, because there might be other opportunities, whether you get this grant or don't, for other kinds of aid or opportunities that use you know, a lot of the components that you used on this response to EPA. So, you know, again, it's very valuable to go through the process, whether you think you have it all together or not, because there might be other grants or local opportunities that you can utilize using the advisory boards or same information, or, you know, those relationships with employers, et cetera. So anyway, just keep that in mind.
Well, to follow up on that point, an example I recall, I believe it was St. Nick's, where a tremendous grantee, great grantee for several years. They were not re-upped. I call it re-upping when a grantee resubmits and gets another grant extension or a new grant. They didn't get the EPA one, but they got a state one. They got another grant to keep their team together to do some other work that was related. And then they came back in to the EPA a couple of years later, and they're doing a new grant with the EPA and the job training. So the fact that you don't get this grant isn't necessarily the end of the road, nor is it the end of your relationship with EPA. is what I guess I'm trying to say.
Mike, there's a comment from Michael in the chat box from LA Conservation Corps. He says, we have been lucky to have good relationships with city brownfields or housing programs that connect us with trainers, or working for a long time with trade unions that offer training or refer us to their trainers.
Excellent, excellent.
And
They,
then lastly, on the idea of using your community or technical college as a resource for training, one of our partner organizations, ATEEC, which goes as Earth, might also be help you identify if there's training opportunities from a community college or technical college in your area. They have a expansive network of community and technical colleges that do environmental training. So.
Organized labor has been a big help to several grantees. They've provided them facilities and trainers. So they've worked hand in hand. They are not the enemy. They really want to work with everybody in the field, because often graduates of this program may become apprenticeships and go into the union.
Another organization, and Nolan's kind of referring to it, but it goes by the acronym PETE, P-E-T-E, the Partnership for Environmental Technology Education. They have a nationwide network of trainers, and they get funding through the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. And they have a train the trainer every year. In fact, I think Shantae, who's on the call, she's waving at us, went through that. Is that correct, Shantae?
Yeah, most definitely. That's why I'm clapping my hands right now, because I'm definitely a HAZWOPER trainer through definitely all of the organizations that came together, and much appreciated. We are focusing our new trainings right now geared towards me being trained from them. So we're able to revamp it and hold it in house, and as well as help to train anyone else that's interested.
Awesome, awesome. And they offer a train the trainer program every year. It's called the Greatest Institute, and it's all at no cost. In fact, I think they even defer the or compensate you for travel and housing. I'm not exactly sure what they cover. Shantae, do you remember what they covered?
Yes, that's correct. Transportation, 100% transportation is covered. Your food, your lodging, pretty much everything is covered. If you're able to, of course, get there on your own, you will be reimbursed if you apply for the scholarships.
And you get all the curriculum.
Correct.
There. So you walk back with all the curriculum, PowerPoints, all of it. It's a fantastic opportunity.
Excellent. Well, any other questions? And hopefully we'll see some of you at Brownfields, and more important, we'll see everyone at the end of August and through the all grantee virtual meeting, and through the PLCs and the face-to-face meeting in Alexandria next spring as a new grantee.
Yeah, and I will pipe up that Brownfields is a very good opportunity to market your program. So if you're planning to come, please bring material that you can hand out or leave at the HMTRI booth for others to pick up. And do come by and not just let us know that you're there, but we might be able to refer other people. But if you volunteer to be at the booth, you can be there and hawk your wares, as we say, in the trade. So again, we hope to see you there. And again, all the best on your final push on getting these grant proposals in to EPA. It's never too late, as we say, as the FedEx guy's honking the horn saying he's got to go. So just do the best you can. And again, all the best to you.
Mike, the last question was, where do we get the scholarship info on the training? And I think that was the training we were just talking about. What happens whenever we find out that they're going to have the Greatest Institute, and it's usually every year. Usually it's sometime in May, but that's altered a little bit sometimes with COVID here the last 2 years. It hasn't been, as consistent time-wise, but usually it's in the spring. And when we find out, we let you know. So give you the opportunity. We'll give you the link, the information, and steer you in the right direction.
They will be in the PLC notes whenever that happens. Usually in the springtime, though.
And as Shante mentioned, yes, it's a 2-week train the trainer.
Shante, are you now available to train in your credentialed areas for other grantees?
That is correct.
Well, anyone looking for a trainer? Shante, can you give us your email?
Yeah, I sure can. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. That's the way we like to work. We're much stronger as a group than we are individually.
There you go.
Thank you. And it's a wonderful network of people. A lot of networking, a lot of communication goes through. So very happy to be a part.
Also, we're very appreciative to EPA. Continue to work with your regional coordinators. Stay in touch with them. Let them know what you're doing, how you're doing, because they're one of your more critical resources.
I'll send out, well, they'll be in the notes, but then on the 10th, we won't have a PLC in August, but I'll send out a listing of breakouts that you may want to go to if you're at brownfields. There's about a dozen breakouts that you may want to go to. Many of them are oriented towards environmental justice, not so much in environmental job training. There's one with our grantees who will identify on the specific job training program. They didn't emphasize brownfields job training this year. We submitted a couple of breakouts, but they weren't accepted. This goes back, 2 years ago almost, when we first started. But there will be a lot of environmental justice and breakouts and community involvement breakouts, and we'll identify those. This is an interesting time for those of you that are in your final stages. Oh, one last thing. Double check your numbers. Double check your numbers. All the regional coordinators always tell us they did not double check their numbers, and because they appear in different parts of the grant. And so you'll say one thing somewhere and you'll put the number down somewhere else and they won't match. And I have the feeling there's evaluators that are just looking for that. So if there's one piece of advice at this very last minute that I would suggest is make sure that you double check your numbers.
Mike, another question down there. Best contact for questions about forms in grants.gov.
Well, grants.gov is basically the best place to go for that, because, and they have a help desk that is excellent. In fact, I would get on grants.gov. We still have plenty of time as you're filling this out, and they'll walk you through it. This is what they do 100% of the time. Deborah.
That was just a thumbs up because that was my question.
Okay.
You handled it greatly.
When in doubt, go to grants.gov.
Okay.
Definitely, they're going to lead you through it and give them plenty of time and walk through them and tell them, I don't know what to put in this. I don't know what I should be putting in there. You could also go to the EPA FAQs that talk a little bit about that, about some of those there's 4 forms I think you have to fill out in the beginning.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Mike, I wanted to reiterate what you said about check your numbers, because when we're going through proposals, we have our calculators out.
Calculators, and make sure that if you have a contact, a supporter, or someone who is leveraging your program and you have their name and phone number in there, assume they're going to call them. So all you have to do is keep them informed. You know, remember, you remember us, or we're looking forward to this, getting this grant, and I know you're planning on providing our life skills training, and so that if and when they're called, if their number is in your grant and they're called by chance by somebody and they say, are you supporting this program and what are you doing? Oh yeah, I know. You don't want them to say, who are they? You know, so if the name and number is in there, just assume that you've got to keep them close. Rita, do you have any other, as our group of no-nos? We actually, if you want to go back to the, if you want to go back to the Brownfields toolbox and go to the last 2 PLCs, we itemized a whole list of things that cost people points during the evaluation. So those of you who may be new on the call or not familiar with these PLCs, or this is your first time or didn't do that, go back to the last 2 PLCs. That would be 77 and 76. And in the 76 session, we itemized, over the years, we've been asking regional coordinators, and they've been at our all grantee meetings, what are the things that tank a job training grant? And they've given it to us, and we've made careful notes of it, and we've listed it. And there's probably about 100 of them in between those 2 PLCs in 276 and 277, the last 2. We've listed everything we learned from regional coordinators and evaluators of what cost grantees points. So if you have a chance, just go back to those, read through them, and compare them with your grant and see if there's something in those lists, those 2 lists. You could go to the notes and see if there's something that they said that you've done that might cost you points.
Mike, I put the link in the for the toolbox and those sessions in the chat. So
good.
That'll take you right there.
Good.
Mike, I wanted to say one of the important things for this grant proposal is to have an extra set of eyes look at it. And if possible, go to someone else who's a grant writer, someone else who can read your grant and point out inconsistencies.
Excellent.
An extra set of eyes helps everybody.
Really good suggestion. And I know Nolan's talked about that and some of our PLCs. And in fact, if you want to get extra points, it's almost too late to that, but have your advisory committee and some of your key partners send them the grant and say, can you take a look at this grant and tell us what you think? And if you do that, write it into the grant because it'll give you plus points. In other words, you just didn't, you included your, ideally, you're supposed to include your advisors and your key partners in the development of the grant. Okay, that's understood. But to the extent that you do that and write it into your grant, that you're having them review your grant and they're helping you with the writing of the grant, I think that's a real positive thing for you. It's not too late to do that.
Mike, in the chat, Deborah mentioned in the 6:15 webinar, Channing Shepherd mentioned to put your narrative info sheet, narrative attachments, including forms, together in one PDF and save it as a blank file so it is searchable for the EPA. Do you know what type of file he referenced?
Well, and Rita could speak to this. There's, you've got your forms, you've got your essentially your threshold criteria, your narrative, which is your evaluation of your attachments. So you've got the forms, there's 4 forms, you've got the 3-page threshold criteria, I call them. You've got the 12-page narrative where that's the meat, where the evaluation, and then you've got the 15-page attachments. What he's referring to is they want you to put it all together in one PDF. So it's much easier for them to get one PDF than to get 4 PDFs. And if you're doing a PDF, just make it a searchable PDF. Does that make sense to anybody or everybody?
Yes, I thought he mentioned like a different type, like make it this kind. But
When he said just a searchable PDF, which means I think most PDFs are searchable. So that if they want to refer to something, they could put a keyword in there. But basically, they want one file.
Okay.
In that.
Thank you.
And don't use more pages, because if it says the file is supposed to be 18 pages and you put in 20 pages, the last 2 pages will be cut off. So make sure you stay within that page range.
Yeah, they're ruthless. They're for a reason. 3 pages, 12 pages, and then 15 pages. And anything beyond that, that's it. And use lots of numbers and be concise with your numbers. Make sure they match, as Rita said. Again, one of those things that's extra credit is be as concise as you can, providing details rather than generalities. Again, that goes back to the list in the last couple PLCs. Use numbers, be specific, make sure the numbers all match. We like to say use one grant writer that writes the whole thing to make it consistent. Everybody's got their own approach, but that helps. Anything else? Well, we're about to have a thunderstorm here this afternoon.
Well, it's your last chance unless you have Steve's 24-hour hotline number.
Well, they do. And just email or text us and we'll get back to you. Still have a few more days. You cannot talk to your regional coordinator about it because of the RFA is out and they can't talk about individual grants. They could talk in a group in generalities, but like a forum like this, but they can't really talk to you about your grant. So we're the only ones left. So just text us, call us, or email us, and we'll try to help you the best we can.
Okay, all the best, everyone.
Good luck, everyone.
Call it a day.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you all at Brownfields. We're about to have a huge thunderstorm.
Uh-oh. Batten down the hatches, Mike. Make sure your windows are closed.
Well, I have a bird feeder right outside my window. So when I'm looking off into space, I'm actually watching birds, and there's no birds at the bird feeder. They're gone. They're home. So.
Yeah, did you two want to stay on, or are we done, or what do you want to do?
Well,
I'm trying to leave. I have a 2:15.
Well, we
well, that's 3 minutes.
we like to hang out because it's funny how questions pop up that are really good that
Yeah.
people don't think about for a while. Some of our best discussions have been after hours.
Yeah, it's like, oh, why didn't I say this? I should have said.
I wish
Right.
I would have asked this question.
Rita,
Yeah.
we worked with your potential grantee, and I hope we answered all their questions.
Here's one, Mike.
And you
Here's
just
one for
gotta-
Katie.
Hey, Katie.
Katie asked, should we upload our employer survey to grants.gov?
Ooh, I think that would take a lot of. Rita, what do you think? That's a lot
I
of.
don't know.
That's I would do the results of the survey,
Yeah,
but
because you may be
that's-
limited on page count.
yeah, that's valuable real estate. I would definitely include all the things you did as part of your labor market assessment. But I would just not put the survey in there. I would say you did a survey, but you also contacted potential employers, and you're in active conversation with people who are interested in looking at your grant, your grant graduates. So what I would do is I would shotgun it and say, yeah, we did a survey, but that's not all we did. We just don't want, that's everybody does surveys, but we did contacts, we did calls. Take some of those people from that survey and give them a call. You still have time. Give them a call, tell them, thanks for answering the survey. We'd like to keep you on our list. Would you be interested in looking at some of our graduates? And, almost all of them will say, well, we'll look at them. I can't tell you I'm going to hire them, but I'm going to look at them. Well, as soon as now, if they say, yeah, I'm happy to look at them. If you need support letters and they're really enthusiastic about your program, ask them if they'll send you a support letter. So as far as labor market assessment, the most important thing, I think, in my opinion, is support letter that says, I'm an employer and I'm going to look at their graduates. I can't say I'm going to hire them. I'm going to look at them. That's number one. Two, yeah, I've been in touch with the program, and we're actively staying engaged. And then the survey I would put towards the lesser of the importance, but should be in there.
There you go, Mike. She followed up by saying we had 6 employers answer the survey. Then they all reviewed the curriculum we put together. 2 provided letters of support.
Fantastic. Now that is fantastic. Now you nailed it, Katie. That's exactly, and make sure you get credit for it. Make sure it's in there in that grant. And in fact, everything you said to us, you want to make sure it's written into the narrative.
Yeah, but I agree with the comment that the survey itself might be too much real estate,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But
Mike,
you want to get credit for the good work you did in individual contact. Yeah.
Like she mentioned that she is muted because she's in a loud environment. That's why
Okay.
she's commenting. I told her that was fine. And then, yeah, she said their feedback really helped me as a social worker writing a brownfields grant. Haha.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds like a fantastic.
If you could write this grant, you could write any grant. This is a tough grant to write. You've got to have your whole program done before you even get the money. It's a tough grant. EPA is a very demanding employer, but they're good to work with.
And then she also added, I really appreciate these PLCs so much. I literally went through your lists of what to do and not to do when working on the narrative. I'll
Cool.
let y'all go now. I'm hopeful.
Cool.
Well,
See you soon.
Good luck, Katie.
See you at the end of August.
Aloha.
All right, and Brian's on, and Brian, when he came on, said that he was muted today. So
Oh, okay.
I don't know if he is still. Brian, any questions or comments if you're still there? If not, we'll
call it a day.
We might call it a day.
I'll send the notes out on Friday. We're going to meet on Monday, and
Good job.
Steve's going to get you the content for the employee finder.
Okay.
I think we're firing on all cylinders.
Yep.
Yep.
You guys missed some good squash soup this afternoon.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
Oh, you didn't save us any?
No, I ate it all.
Would you mail it to the starving children in Bosnia?
Yeah,
Give us
no. You know, the problem is I had it with Pringles, and Pringles like destroyed any health benefit of squash soup. I mean, Pringles is probably the worst thing you could eat.
Yeah, that's like me saying I drink a lot of fruit juice, but I add vodka, you know.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's exactly right. I have a thing with Pringles. When I got an ME and then I got a MBA, but when I got my ME, I interviewed Procter and Gamble, and there was a guy that I was interviewing, and at that point, in those days, you got free trips, so you'd go everywhere. So I went to Cincinnati. You went for the free trip. So anyway, I'm sitting there, and this big guy comes out, and he says, "I want to show you something," you know, and he pulls out this canister of Pringles. It wasn't called Pringles. And he said, "This is a potato product we're testing. What do you think of it?" And he hands it to me, and it was awful. It was horrible. And I just didn't know what a Pringle was. He called it a potato product. I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty good, you know. I didn't get the job, but now I'm hooked on Pringles for the rest of my life.
But they might have given you a bad batch just to see what your judgment was like, you know, saying, okay,
Well,
that's right.
I always think what would have happened if I took that job in Cincinnati. It would have been a totally different
career.
Glad I didn't.
You'd be 10 years younger.
That's true.
According to
That's right.
my experience and Mark Twain, you know, because it's just,
I would have smelled like soap.
well, now it's just not a forward city, I think is the
Yeah,
term
Cincinnati.
they use. Yeah.
That's where the water program used to be located a long time ago in EPA in Cincinnati. And the lucky ones were in either Las Vegas or in, well, Washington wasn't a bad place, but in Corvallis was a great one. Corvallis was a great place to work for EPA. But
Yeah.
You DOE guys, you had all the nice places to go.
Well, yeah, we had all of the virtually uninhabited sites in the US, you know, so that
Yeah.
we put a plant here because it had water, rail, and it's virtually uninhabited. We go, then why did it have water and rail? They go, yeah, well, you know.
That's it.
All right.
But all right, you guys.
See you
All
later.
right. We'll
Take
see
care.
you.
All right.
Enjoy the rest of that soup, Mike.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.